是耶娑哈。哦，南无曼珠是耶，南无娑是耶，南无我达摩是耶娑哈。觉当作业中南来将就不努那些个苏西，大约去年给别做南给做了边界上给做把手。觉当作业中南来将就不努那些个苏西，大约去年给别做南给做了边界上给做把手。觉当作业中南来将就不努那些个苏西，大约去年给做南给做了边界上给做把手。所学对对是学面多少，至少得是你的肩膀的，上给许多比的不容易，那个是那绝不说，个人那没到了岗的要到要。
Da liderano invece oggi, white nice, che da pan, ci da che ci di mano si può dire mashallah, mama di da di ma che bala oggi per di manda da dewa de da lando proci da dunno ba chi ne vuole di da di manda da dewa da di giù dewa si può da dunno che mo in ba so da che ne ba ma ni si da so o che ci ma vuole ci
Please adjust your Please adjust your sitting posture according to seven meditative postures of Vairocana. And think, all sentient beings have been my mothers. All sentient beings have been my mothers, not just once, but for numberless times. Even though all kind and they are as kind as my mothers in this life. Even though all kind mothers and sentient beings want happiness and do not want even a small suffering. However, due to engaging wrongly in objects of adoptions and abandonment, they only experience suffering. In our mind, sincerely generate loving kindness towards all kind mothers and sentient beings, thinking, how nice it would be if all kind mothers and sentient beings were to have happiness and the causes of happiness that are virtue. May all kind mothers and sentient beings have happiness and the causes of happiness. I will cause all kind mothers and sentient beings to have happiness and the causes of happiness. Lama, please bless me to be able to do so.
maybe just one year so to that region ne so no shi ne ba so region ne di cho ta da ta chi ma to chi to da so da ni da la ma shi da so so je do
Next, we generate compassion towards all suffering mothers and sentient beings, thinking, how nice it would be if the bodies of all suffering mothers and sentient beings were free from all classes, according with completing virtue, such as physical pain, sickness, and problem caused by four elements. May the bodies of all suffering mothers and sentient beings be free from all classes, discordant with accomplishing virtue. I will free the bodies of all suffering mothers and sentient beings from all classes, discordant with accomplishing virtue. Lama, please bless me to be able to do so.
ni di da ko da na ko cha na ko chi na chi no chi na ka da chi na da chi na ma ni shi da ni so ko si ba chi ko
How nice it would be if the minds of all suffering mothers and sentient beings were free from all classes, discordant with accomplishing virtue, such as mental suffering, fear, and all coarse and subtle negative discursive thoughts. May the minds of all suffering mothers and sentient beings be free from all classes, accordant with accomplishing virtue, I will free the minds of all suffering mother sentient beings from all classes discordant with accomplishing virtue. Lama, please bless me to be able to do so. How nice it would be if the speech of all suffering mother sentient beings were free from all classes discordant with accomplishing virtue. All coarse and subtle negative speech, such as telling lies. May the speech of all suffering mother sentient beings be free from all classes discordant with accomplishing virtue. I will free the speech of all suffering mother sentient beings from all classes discordant with accomplishing virtue. Lama, please bless me to be able to do so. How nice it would be if the three doors of all suffering mother sentient beings were free from all classes discordant with accomplishing virtue. May the three doors of all suffering mother sentient beings be free from all classes accordant with accomplishing virtue. I will free the three doors of all suffering mother sentient beings from all classes discordant with accomplishing virtue. Lama, please bless me to be able to do so. How nice it would be if all mother sentient beings were free from all suffering and the causes of suffering that are non-virtues. May all mother sentient beings be free from all suffering and the causes of suffering. I will free all mother sentient beings from suffering, from all suffering and the causes of suffering. Lama, please bless me to be able to do so. Next, we generate bodhicitta. First, we ask ourselves, who should take on the responsibility to free all mother sentient beings from the sufferings of samsara and of lower realms? I should take on the responsibility to free all mother sentient beings from the sufferings of samsara and of lower realms. Even though I should take on the responsibility, I do not have the ability to do so now. Who has such abilities? Those who have perfectly, those who have perfectly, those who have achieved perfectly complete enlightenment, the abilities to do so. Therefore, for the sake of all mother sentient beings, by all means, I will achieve the precious state of enlightenment. Next, we generate all encompassing yoga mind. The aspiring conventional bodhicitta that thinks, for the sake of all mother sentient beings, I will achieve the state of enlightenment. These transform into a perfect, complete mundis at one's heart. and the ultimate bodhicitta, which is one's mind becoming in one taste with emptiness, the lack of inherent resistance. These transform into a white, five-pronged vajra on top of the mundis.
which is talking about to keep it recording, is going.
Next, we meditate on emptiness for a short while. That I do not exist intrinsically one with or intrinsically different from the aggregates. Thus, I am empty of intrinsic existence.
Just most of the news are coming, so just a question for the see the teaching was that don't look on that. Always in the gym was in the machine, and the children in the south is the case here, and the idea you need to teach as a see how we to do it. That because it's similar on the other side. The gym patient is
As I always mention, it is important and beneficial to conjoin the roots of virtue of our three doors with the practice of six perfections. Thus, to conjoin these roots of virtue of listening, contemplating, and meditating on the Dharma with the practice of six perfections. The first one is generosity. The nature of generosity is an intention of giving. These roots of virtue of listening, contemplating, and meditating on the Dharma is for the arising of happiness in sentient beings and for purifying the sufferings of all sentient beings.
What the usual was a place about it's really was on the machine. Yes, I was a genius as a living genius, but the major single the phone one on the mess of those killing. It was a good that's really pretty this.
Next is morality. The nature of morality is the minds of abandonment. When I listen to, contemplate, and meditate on the Dharma, I will properly eliminate my physical and verbal misdeeds so that they do not manifest in these 2 hours.
So what else? You see what the second was on the machine. And it's not the TV because you say that the way the coming particular over and so to the Jobaina, because there's a question of this.
Next is patience. The nature of patience is an undisturbed mind. I will patiently accept any physical or mental hardships that occur during when I listen to, contemplate, and meditate on the Dharma.
That's interesting. What the people two is that finishing was on the machine. When there's always a chill of go at two to the Somaina, because it gets at the finish question of this.
Next is joyous effort. The nature of joyous effort is a mind that takes delight in virtue. I will take delight in the virtue of listening, contemplating, and meditating on the Dharma.
That's so big, but however, city the neighbor, the Sunday was on my machine. And there's always a chill because the same did not do the nine or the model. He shall have the need to bring Somaina. That because I guess that the Sunday question of this.
Next is meditative stabilization. The nature of meditative stabilization is a mind that single-pointedly focuses on any virtuous object. I will single-pointedly focus my mind on the intended virtuous object without being influenced by distractions and discursive thoughts.
Sure, how did you go the human was on the machine? And there's always a chill because it's that they're coming in a place of a shitty Malabaya, what shit over the Somaina. But they was a better the human question of this.
Last one is wisdom. The nature of wisdom is an awareness that thoroughly distinguishes phenomena. I I will properly and unmistakenly understand the words and meanings of the teachings that I listen to, contemplate, and meditate on. Set a motivation. For the sake of all mother sentient beings, I will achieve the state of enlightenment. For these, I will listen to the commentary on the listen to the commentary on Lam Rim teaching and practice accordingly in order to benefit sentient beings. Today we are going to we are going to start with the assertions by Nagarjuna and Ayadeva about how the true grasping being the root of samsara. I repeat. So we are going to begin with explaining the assertion by Nagarjuna and Ayadeva about how true grasping being the fruit of samsara. All the other innate and intellectually acquired afflictions, as they operate, apprehend features of that very object that have been superimposed by the innate ignorance explained above. So whether it is a innate or intellectually acquired afflictions, they operate because of the innate ignorance. So as they operate, they apprehend the features of that very object. So for example, afflictions such as punishment, then they apprehend the objectiveness of the objective feature of that very object, and anger then apprehend the ugly feature or the repulsive feature of that object that have been superimposed by the innate ignorance. So intellectually acquired afflictions are those afflictions they are affected by tenets, by school of tenets. For example, branding object as established by way of its own character, as asserted by certain school of thoughts. So those are intellectually acquired afflictions.
木个那个时候的，他刚才就是么说，第一刚才他没说，你就往不，他那的那种这样的比较往不学习过的，但比较往不了电影面嘛，是吧？往不了电影面嘛，也是，这样的比较往了嘛，对吧？我那那个有没是吧？那这个哪些了？别的哪些？那这个有没些？那我就是说，看那的本来经济就没的把电影往给，然后比出来，我们就觉得这个往这里也是，这个是什么？就是说这个他经济没的把电影往这里也是，他就是说我的那对别人不是这样的吧？
Ngomong siya ang mariba tinggi la tini
哦，我们写的那个工作我叫老师说，什么的，我把电影往里，我是他们教的是。
Therefore, just as the other four sense powers of eyes and so forth abide in reliance upon the body sense power rather than abiding independently in a separate place, all the other mental afflictions also operate depending on innate ignorance, which is why ignorance is said to be primary. 400 Sanda says, like the body sense in the body, ignorance pervades them all. So just like the other four sense power of eye, ear, nose, etc. So these four sense powers they abide in reliance on the body sense power. So the body sense power is the support, and these four sense powers of eyes and so forth are the supported. So and just like these, then other mental afflictions they also operate depending on innate ignorance. So innate ignorance is like the body sense power, which is a support for the other afflictions. As it says here, all the other mental afflictions also operate depending on innate ignorance, so which is why ignorance is said to be primary.
那刚才我就是大家我们大家要不了我们要不了这个了嘛，这个是吧？他看到马里巴的碰到人物不的，是吧？那我不放心，本来要放心，就把电子把你往的时候，他讲你往的，我怎么都把那个七八多少把的，多少把的，他马里巴电往也是吧？都把它都把它，他做的多东西，是不是呢？你把电力往这边嘛，马里巴电新出的，我是这个嘛，就是他们这边有什么马来说啊？他们这边，他们这边就是说他们东人，他们这边就关键是他讲的这个话，他们这，那个刚才就这个的，那我把这个，那当然让个经济主办就，让个经济主办就把你往的，啊，是把你往的，往的，一旦听到这些的呢，第二名呢，在下就开始，那你把电往的，这让个经济主办手里的话，让经济主办手电往的，是吧？是那个，就是一旦听到什么呢，第二名写上面。然后这个时候呢，你那么你去年的呢，我那边原来学堂进是，我现在就是个，他刚才电气是稀里糊涂，就是你觉得稀里糊涂啊。
So like the body sense in the body, ignorance pervades them all. So ignorance is like a boss that asks other afflictions to perform their works. So or in dependence on these boss, other afflictions they work in dependence on ignorance, the boss. So commentary on 400 standard says attachment and so forth also operate by superimposing features such as attractiveness and repulsiveness on the mere inherent existence of things narrowly imputed by ignorance. So another way of saying this is due to ignorance, attachment and so forth arise. And they also operate by superimposing features such as attractiveness and repulsive onto the object. Then they operate in a way that is not different from ignorance and even depend on it, for ignorance is the primary. So ignorance is the base or is the foundation upon which other afflictions such as attachment, pride, anger arise. So after that, once ignorance has apprehended the object as established by way of their intrinsic characteristics, another way of saying this is established by way of their own character, if an object is agreeable to one's own mind, attachment arises, and when it is observed. And when if it appears disagreeable to one's own mind, anger arises toward it. So after ignorance, apprehend the object that is established by way of its own character. If apprehended object is agreeable to one's mind, then attachment will arise upon observing it. And if it appears to be disagreeable to one's mind, then anger will arise. Kasati kami pama sa te ni tilung maten ro. Itu orang main ba. Kandu main. So if the object does not appear agreeable or disagreeable to one's mind and remains as an ordinary being in between, so it also refers to it also means a neutral thing. So neither arises. So neither attachment nor anger arises when the object is observed, but further ignorance of the same kind does arise. As 60 stanzas of reasoning says, why would the great venom afflictions not arise in those whose minds have a basis for it, even when it is an ordinary object? Ordinary object also means a neutral object. So they are seized by the snake of the mental afflictions. So this innate ignorance, if one do not apply antidotes to innate ignorance and abandon it, then this ignorance will continue to arise. And then this innate ignorance is like the root of a tree. So the tree is the tree of afflictions. Then this ignorance is like the root of the tree of afflictions. So the intended meaning of precious garland also appears to be that the view of the transitory collection arises from apprehending the aggregates as truly existent. So the intended meaning of precious garland, as explained above, refer to this one. Okay. Refer to this one. As long as one apprehends the aggregates, one apprehends an I in them. If one apprehends an I, there is karma, and from karma there is rebirth.
어디길래 하면 기준은 아주 기본 리가도 시발에 빠나 기본 해야 되나 기본 리가도 다 실사를 시본 가서 가서 뭐 그래서 지금 봐你实际说的这个是吧？我也是那是这个，你往我说话，那是我去发现人吧？那你是这个说的，那这个什么是？那你没有说的，那到了那个你那是有的吧？嗯。Baca, mari.
就像空座，
Baca, kudo, mari. Kesuruh, kesuruh, naruh, pening, insan naruh,
大明啊，
insan. Tawa ngada, kita, kata, tawa sendiri, sendiri sendiri, kata naruh,
他
kata,
大，
kata, tawa sendiri, sendiri sendiri,
他冲击写这个很难的，
到处，
哦，到中间啊，
到处，
哦，他中间，
到处是一个对冲击。speed 的递出的，
嗯
，speed 的递出是一个，
嗯
那么这个我自己是个中国人呢，都是学的，
出听
而且我这个更老大，但另外呢，到年龄不上的那个，但另外呢，到了那个也可的，
有冇我送啊啲，人哋啲食
到
药，
到
明啊，
到了，
嗯
那我们街道的行为，但你们进行吧的行为，但我基本这个像人家老人这个的，进行吧的了，我们的把电话给干了，在电话里。kita kena tim tak kira mari ko si ya ko
马去把他呢啲，
mari ko dia wa kita da ada so mari ko je da so ma vision
比他差啦，
so mari ko je da 你说这个这个就到了你这人的好好的我也是我的看这个是来的我说你们他妈就是mari ko je我的是mari ko je结果学说我说mari ko dia 我的kita他da 大家不能个叫什么大人把你接嘛也是这个可能这个我吃过
So the way the remaining mental afflictions arise should be inferred and understood from the explanations in the context of persons of medium capacity. So in the medium capable being, in that context, then we talk about identifications of afflictions. We talk about how the stages by which affliction arises, and also the faults of afflictions. So you can refer to the persons of medium capacity, then you will see these three outlines. So then when we talk about the identifications of afflictions, we also identify the five non-views and five views. The five non-views are uh, attachment, anger, pride, ignorance, and doubts. So these are five non-views, and five views are view of the transitory collection, view of extreme views, apprehending view as supreme, apprehending morality as supreme, and wrong view. So these are five non-views and five views that we have learned in the context of persons of medium capacity. So you can refer to the explanations in those chapters and understand accordingly.
我的是吧，这边可以这种就蛮有那种，这现在知道嘛，也提供我们那个基本这个，就大家定义来是这个路的，就是说，是吧？可是，
Yeah, so regarding the explanations on how afflictions arise, then you can refer to those chapters in the context of persons of medium capacity.
那对我们就是说，他跟我弄的就是说，这个是我哪里那个的，我就去哪里我，哪里走哪里都说的，可能对的，他的心里，哪里把地方的，是吧？他的主观智慧，哪里把地方的。但是哪里把电网给按照设把的，目前呢，看到的把给建立的是电网基地的，你那个看到，然后这里是我这边，本地个我是地的这个马来西亚的，那就是当地个是，那个前面那个是，有当地的，但我们团结的当地个当地必须要有，是吧？你喜欢，现在我也买了蛮多，你们街道的街市的来看到。看到这个机关业务也是，你是的话，
侬记住那的机会里，
经济是什么的嘛？这个我也是，是吧？你呢，单子连到了700元，
당진기?
어떤 변화가
어,
나한테 내려다가 정말 안 찍었어. 한 세만한데가 쓸까 단 무슨 규모가 들어서 단지 써야 돼. 아, 사람들 근데 이제 좀 단지 쓰기 식으로 와. 단지 써야 돼.
당진사에 대한 양계가 그래서 좀 뭐.
그러니까 예, 세만한데가 다
음,
무슨 규모가 식으로 와.
음, 음.
사람들도 이제 좀 단지 쓰다 주다 오빠 이거 쓰라고 그러와. 단지 써야 돼. 뭐 단적이 단지 써야 돼 말아.
상사랑 투비,
이게 그건지
제일 주바,
이제 단지 들어와. 어디 식으로 했어. 다른 거는 어떤 데 단주에 가서 간다. 한 사람한테 친구도 만든 것 같아. 가지고 나이 친구도 휴자이 같은 사람 좀 봐. 그 사람한테 친구도 만든 거 들어와. 지 가자면 친구도 만든 거 들어와.
대한 오만 핑도 알아.
또뭐 대주가. 근데 단지 뭐 단지 여러분 되고 말해서 단지 내가 되고 말해서 이나 너무 찌르는 거 같아서 제가 좀 무서워. 미스를 받아 가지고 있어.
당진이 되단 거 알아.
음.
상사랑 투비 제일도,
그건 봐.
제일 주바 진바디. So also a commentary on Compendium of Valid Cognition says, he who sees a self will uh, always hear. He who sees a self will always adhere to what he refers to as I. Through that adherence, there is grasping for happiness. Through that craving, thoughts are obscure. There is strong craving when excellence is seen. The mind is grasped as that which achieves it. As long as there is attachment to self, one will thus revolve in secular existence. So, commentary on Compendium of Valid Cognition is composed by Dhammakirti. So, their assertions is common to Sautrantika and Chittamatra. So even yeah, so although this is you can come to understand it in that way, although this system differs from the way the above explanation proceeds the two apprehensions of a self, you should come to understand the stages of how the mental afflictions arise depending on it. So what it says here is in terms of how affliction arise, whether the assertions are similar. The assertions are the same, whether the assertions, explanations in the commentary on Compendium of Valid Cognitions or according to Prasangika. So the explanations on how fiction arise are the same. So their view differs in terms of uh, their view differ in asserting self-grasping. So since the assertions or explanations in commentary on Compendium of Valid Cognition is common to Sautrantika and Chittamatra. In other way of saying this is according to Sautrantika and Chittamatra, which is common to them, then their way of proceeding the self-grasping is different from that of Prasangika. So a commentary, how's it? According to the assertion common to Sautrantika and Chittamatra, the assertions on self-grasping would be apprehending person as established, uh, sorry, apprehend, sorry, is the apprehensions of person as self-sufficient, substantially existent. So this is like the self-grasping asserted in the school, asserted which is common to Sautrantika and Chittamatra. And the Prasangika assertions on self-grasping is as previously mentioned in previous class. So their assertions on self-grasping is different. However, how fiction arise are the same, whether it is asserted by school, whether it is asserted by Sautrantika and Chittamatra or Prasangika, their way of assertions are exactly the same. So even though uh, their assertions on self-grasping is different.
내가 나는 너한테 그때 맞이를 같이 대화를 막 같이 쏘고 나는 내가 원래 대화를 쏘고 저는 방방 나와냐니 내가 이거랑 친구 주고 소리 난 아직 대화를 와 나도 말이 버텨라 그래 나도 말이 버텨 오는데 나가 잡아줘
그래 당신 말해봐. 나오자.
나와냐니 이게 이게 나랑 친구 주고 소리 대화 가나 나랑 친구 봐 그래서 우리가 나도 말이 버텨 와 나도 말이 버텨 오는데 오늘 나가 잡아줘 이 다음 대화를 세 가지 다기 대화래야 세번에 다기 다고 와라 맞게 봐. 어, 뭐 봤어. 다고 와라. 세 비오 게 히. 딱 이제 와서 이제 보는 거 봐. 어떤 이제 나 뭐라 그래. 나 저기 예, 스파 배우니 딱 이제 와서 그런다. 이제 무슨 레스 이런 거 와. 뭐 되게 좋다. 아까다 나 정말 스피 오게. 아까 딱 이제 와서 스파 지워서. 이 오다 안 되는 시다 말이야. 그거 뭐 이제 시고. 아까 강남에 계속 마시고 와.
So initially, attachment to the self arises once the observed object of the thought I is apprehended as established by way of its own, by way of its intrinsic characteristics. So this is J. Rinpoche's explanations on the commentary on Compendium of Valid Cognitions. So he who sees a self will always adhere to what he refers to as I. Through that adherence is craving for happiness, and through that craving, thoughts are obscure. So what it says here is this the once a yeah uh, yeah. So the thought I is apprehended as established by way of its own character. So it refers to the ignorance or the true grasping, which apprehend I as established by way of its own character. So that generates craving for the self happiness. So because of this, it generates craving for self happiness. However, since there is no independent happiness for the self that does not depend on what is mine, there is craving for mine. So that generates for the self happiness. And however, since there is no independent happiness for the self, I mean, that does not depend on what is mine. So the self happiness depends on mine, depends on what is mine. So the meaning, since there is no independent happiness for the self that does not depend on what is mine. So in other way of saying this is, self happiness depends on mine, depends on what is mine. So therefore, there is craving for mine. That obscures the faults in what is identified as mine and causes one to see excellent qualities in it.
我了讲到么，讲的是务多，讲到东西这个就是讲到么事务多，讲到讲到什么当地的些的，但当地我这个地方呢，讲到能就也是，但你这个话，
我们
能就也
买把这
我的别，我说老鼠碰到一面把什么东西啊，你这个自己在这也看到看到这个话，那这里的这个只有我那里，看到老鼠碰到一面把什么说，老鼠的别一些我，那马里把地方。Mari ba dewa de ta ni de des ni dewa de ta le sam des ta le sam de ta kesu kora de nga ni ko na shi ta ni mu mari ba dewa de ni dewa de le sa le dewa ya ni o ni ni ke ni ke le ta kwa la ma ni sa ni ba ni ba ni dewa de ni le u le se ya da ko ni de ba so ma ni shi do ni wa ni so wa ma shi do Ripare, ero lì, insomma, non è mai tutto nasce. Nadi mari pateri, non è più
quindi
o quindi non è più non è più wa wa le di carsina che non fa ma ni sa già di wa ma mi sa già di anda ya mari ya anda ti o ni ci o tanto su ancora gente su ancora gente che se fa nadi mari pateri tro ma tu ci vado tu scorre che ne o ne se fa wa nggak mi kalau sama tu sih ada kone
thì cả cái group
kone kalau ne pal tu ni dan kalau nak tahu doa o dinanji jadi kalau jadi ne sih kok
但是买个把主嘛都把赌
kalau mari batin wangi batin wangi nanti ni sa batin wangi tu wah kau kone yang jadi mari batin ni yang jadi ni dia semua
平时听我哪路拉汤，你第一个的东一把炖煮，哪个东一炖煮吧，
东西就把这生活啊，你这地方很社会，我是不到一年多，那可能很社会。
Yeah. So consequently, mind is grasped as something that achieves the self's happiness. So mind is grasped as something that achieves the self happiness. So mind is grasped fever of self-happiness. So karma is committed owing to the mental affliction that arise like this. Through that karma, once again reborn in secular existence. 70 stanzas on emptiness by Nagarjuna says, karma has mental afflictions as its cause. Karma formation derived from the afflictions. The body has karma as its cause. Those three are empty of a nature. So in Precious Garland by Nagarjuna also says that all these start from ignorance, and because of ignorance, afflictions arises. Afflictions arise, and due to affliction, one accumulates. Karma is accumulated. So due to karma, one take rebirth in samsara. So these are like this is the causal relationship between uh, ignorance, afflictions, karma, and rebirth in samsara. So once one rebirth in takes rebirth in samsara, again one goes through the cycle. Again, due to ignorance, affliction arise, and due to afflictions, then one accumulates karma, and etc. So it goes on and on. So until one is freed from this the ignorance, the self-grasping, one will be trapped in this cycle, in this circle of ignorance, affliction, karma, samsara. So then it will be like a rod with one side of the how's it there is an example. Spinning fan, yeah, the TV window, yeah, yeah, yeah. So it's like a rod. Then you how to then with fire burn on both ends. Then you spin it, then it becomes like a circle, right? So then is the analogy is like this, saying that if one do not one until one is free from ignorance, the self grasping, one will circle in samsara just like the spinning rod that looks like a swirling fire or something. I don't remember the word exactly, but that's when you spin the burning rod quickly, then it looks like a circle.
어디 여러 가지 같은 소다 예전에 지금 코어 거의 된걸라니 단위는 되는 것에 지금 한번 돈 지금 한번 누가 지금 같은 소다 다 되다 그 코어 거기서 코어 거랑 필요한 코어 거는 당시 말이 봐 지금 지금 아니고 야 너무 다시 보도 시작해 봐 따와나다 다른 거 수도 너무 좋아 어찌 시작 그러니까 지금 너무 대화가 되면서 내서 그래서 좋아 나 랑송서 이렇게 그냥 랑송서 말이 봐 대화 너무 너무 대화인데 나한테는 랑송서 니다 랑송
람순보.
랑송 무슨 스포르진 뭐지 나 대서 꼬라지 때문에 다 꼬라 예 꼬라 그래서 꼬라 이만 있으면 와 어디 나도 우리 버티 빠면 좋아 근데 꼬라 꼬다다 지금 무슨 좋아 이거를 꼬라 보여 좀 봐도 봐 하고 이제 무슨 대수 봐
람마 람러 이거 람순보.
이거 랑송보로
Yeah, so if you train in this manner to gain certainty regarding the stages of revolving in cyclic existence. So as we mentioned just now, due to ignorance, afflictions arise. Due to affliction, one accumulates karma. So ignorance, affliction, and karma are given the name three paths. So because of these three paths, one circle in samsara again and again.
这就是老是光他郁闷吧，老是什么，他妈的郁死呢，对吧？
郁諗啦，
郁死，嘛那个吧，嘛他郁死我吧，
做他郁，
从他郁闷吧，耶稣看他，啊我你把死呢，这嘛一个过来接的呀，他不马里巴进去你们的来电话呀马里巴的你们去，都是过来接的没事。
你哋拖他郁送咩吧些啲？
아무보다 도마 이세 인터넷에서 봐야 먼저 그래서 꼬라지는 수가 꼬라지는데 그래서
얘네들 말이 많아.
많이 봐 포마 드시 봐 포마 드시 봐 듣고라 된데 그래서 우리가 나한테 꼬라지려 그래서
다 의외나 기만. Yeah, so in Precious Garland, there is one line, it says, these three paths. So these three paths refer to ignorance, afflictions, and karma. So these three paths has no beginning, a middle, or end. So what it means is, so in relation to each other, one continue to circle in samsara. So due to ignorance, friction arise, and due to frictions, then one accumulate karma, and then one circle in samsara again and again. Lamsum tuta usum mebara. Lamsum tuta u. Tuta u meba. Tuta u sa te poa re. Poa se dio na. Tuta u ne. Koagi toma, koagi tama da bore. Yung lamsum bodiro. Tuta u. Lamsum de ni te toma, tama, te yoma. Yeah, so the three paths has no beginning, has no beginning, a medium, or end. So what it means is, you cannot identify the beginning. This path is the beginning, that path is the middle, or that path is the end. So what it means is, until you abandon ignorance, the three paths has no beginning, end, or middle.
Mariba on the doing a tower that Chile together. The same Majapagina. The people should visit that. I think by this subject, what's the that is she, that is Podolo. On my theatre, the Dodo. Mariba on the wheel is. Dena, Mariba on Dena. They ponji, tower on that. Gila Chia to the better job, better Majapane. That's what I'm wondering. But she is that sure.
So regarding the translation of the precious garland, so probably can be translated like this: there is no beginning, middle, or end in the three paths. Probably translated in this way is better. I'm not so sure, so I can refer to a precious garland for the proper translation. So this is just a temporary translation. So then next we are going to talk about the need to seek a view of selflessness if you wish to eliminate the apprehensions of the self. So this has 2 points. The reason you need to seek the view that realizes selflessness if you wish to eliminate that ignorance, and how to generate the view that realizes selflessness. So first, we are going to talk about the reason you need to seek the view that realizes selflessness if you wish to eliminate that ignorance. So if one wish to eliminate that ignorance, yet do not put effort in generating the pure view in one mind stream, then one is foolish. One is a fool.
How do you know that the one here? Mariba, Mariba, Tanzini, on the step, there will chance that Tanzini, Chief Tanzi, Kazaka, Tanzini, that didn't come to Mariba and they can't be in the Rova, Chief Tanzi, Mariba, Kanda, Tanzi, Mariba, in the Rova. Oh, that Kanda didn't got a Kanda Rova, and quite Zawala, those the Shimbala. So, Lunda, Java Chapel, yes, Java Chapel, yes. Mamma in Telam, quite Zawa, and those the condition did Java Chapel, yes, did Java Chapel, the Java Majava, Nanda, Mariba de Juana, Java Mariba Tiki, when there was Mariba Tiki, and didn't see the quite Zawa and Rodan condition. So la Java Chile Majaba, Mariba is another way. That the Kupa Chili's. The Kupa Chili's. It is so that I can't Mariba you want to change some pony. That can't get one. 매주 제고래 매주 맞이나 원부 쉬도 또아래 우리 원부 또아 맞지 가봐도 단지 집에 집에 란지 쏘대야 네 간다 우리야 가봐 단지 집에 야 토야게 랑가게 쏘대 와 로서 때데 아 야디 나도 소소게 상로 갖게 마토 이제 나도 좋아하고 근데 카드 좀 봤으니 좋아해 봤으니 나도 120원이나 예 가봐 단지 집에 너야 랑가 좀 까네 나도 소소 배 좋아하면 이제 되잖아 니 말와서 간다 어디로 120원으로 소속은 로그살랑 같은 게 아시다마도 로마지까지 단지 소속은 로사 타히데 현다지 마세바 이 소화가 되잖아 디그리 베스 근데 디그 맞다 소화가 되잖아 디그 말해서 제 뭐냐 봐 요구 싫어서 되려 된다들이 맞아 되게 봐 하게 보시나로
So it is necessary to warn the extinction wherein the ignorance explained above as the twofold apprehensions of a self. So twofold apprehensions of a self refers to self-graspings of person and self-graspings of phenomena, as has been eliminated. One may deem it necessary and even appear to want it, but one who wants to but does not put effort into understanding how branding a self becomes a root of cycle existence has very difficulties. So if you do not put effort in, even though if you say that I don't want ignorance, I want to achieve liberation, I want to achieve the state of enlightenment. If you say that you want this achievement, but you do not put effort into understanding how self-grasping being the root of cycle existence, then that person is of difficulty. So does someone who does not put effort into generating the pure view of selflessness in his mind stream, despite actual insight into this, having thoroughly refuted the object grasped by the apprehensions of the self with scriptures of definitive meaning as well as reasoning. So this is because he has lost the vital essence of the path that leads to liberation and omniscience and yet remain indifferent about it. So if one do not put effort into understanding how self-grasping being the roots of cycle existence, do not put effort into generating the pure view of selflessness in one's mind stream, then uh, this shows that one has lost the vital essence of the path. So these are the vital essence of the path. If you do not put effort into understanding and generating that, then you have lost the vital essence of the path that leads to liberation and omniscience and yet remains indifferent about it. So another way of saying this is you just remain unconcerned, even though you have lost the vital sense of the essence of the path, but you remain indifferent, you remain unconcerned. And this, it means that also you shouldn't be indifferent about it or you shouldn't be unconcerned about it if you have lost the vital essence of the path.
더 돌려주고 더 따와 딜을 끼고 그래서 저거를 다 들어 따와 딜을 끼게 더 당기 되게 뭐야 따와 딜을 끼는데 그 맛이 되는데 오늘도 시기에 해서 진짜로 와 어떻게 모르겠어 다 되게 앉아서 빠지 주라고 막 이제 시험이다 그런데 기본 좋아 한다 받아 이제 지구에 기본 이동이다 보시는
So in order to abandon self-grasping, one has to generate in one's continuum the pure view of selflessness. So this is why the glorious Dhammakiti say in his commentary on Compendium of Valid Cognition.
그런데 빠지 주라고 대가라 소원에 간다 본 시간 넣으시고 빠지 주라고 가르치나 이제는 뭐지만 간다 제대로 정보로 더 빠지 주라다 간다 와서다 그래서 또 한번 봐다 간다 따와서 생각을 지고는 간다 제대로 정보로 와 더 빠지 주라고 있으면도 있으라고 다 간다 지금 지로 이 단지 디비스도 비신 수마쇼 제일 수마쇼 다 단지 저번에 본 그야 그냥 말은 너무 저번에 본 그야 그냥 말이지 와
공的一啲显喻的，显喻的顺嘛，
我形式嘛是吧？那形式嘛是吧？什么的？当地这个日本那些的得了，没把多呀，他一讲的是吧？当地这个先把那些的，可没把钱，他看到，哎，好好的是吧？
显版东西，
我先把那些，
没吧？
我没把行，没把好好的是，这蛤蟆我为了那当地的共同要，那当地的比大部分通路好。当地的个，你这个哪些货，只怕的是老话的是，我现在说的，那等于还好过的，好的，当地的话，这刚才当地的，让个经济嘛，我当地的，我你这个哪些我也那是的门多啊，我现在多啊，我跟你讲，10多7、8年多啊是，那等于还好过就，那还好过就的，当地的人，不，当可能被我颠簸嘛一个，怎么一个。 dembo 많이 받아 하고 그러와 이 하고 이제 뜻동반 되다 하고 그러다 단지게 뭐시 하고 동반 되다 하고 단지 그 지금 나시 뭐에서 뭔데 하고 이제 동반 되다 하고 오다데 이 소다 단지 지신이 신쇼 그래서 나 신쇼는 단위 들어와 그렇지 예수 단지게 뽕아 이 신신쇼네 단지게 뽕 그래 뭐도 반서 시트게 체마서 나시 그러와 맞아 한발에 체마지 수바이나 한발에 체마 수바이나 다도 그렇게 거기 체마 받는 줘야 그래서 그러와 다도 거기 받 되게 맞아 실 줘봐 기로와 그때 도그래서 단지 때 가서 주에 봐 누가 써야 가서 체마 거는 네 거야 말이야 이라 상담 왔지 그러와 이 상담이 공원에 전에 단지 때 이거데 왜 짐바 나시 코 lem바린 거 배워도 늦게 받지 늦게 받는 단지 로시 보는 돈 왔다
Hmm?
단지 때 로시 뭐 하고는 단지 때 로시 뭐 하고는 돈 돈이요 돈만 되는 돈
This is why the glorious Dhammakirti said in his commentary on Compendium of Valid Cognitions. So, Jeremiah quoted Dhammakirti, Nagarjuna, Ayadeva, and other scholars in order to support the points mentioned here. So, without their objects being disproven, so without their objects referred to the determining object. So, without their determining being disproven or refuted or negated. So they cannot possibly be abandoned. Abandoning desire, hatred, and so forth, connected with excellent qualities and faults, requires not seeing these in objects and not external. So when removing an external object of elimination, such as a bone that has pierced your skin, you can completely remove it by means of something like a needle, independently of negating the object in this manner. When eliminating an internal mental object of abandonment, however, you cannot do it like this. Rather, you must eliminate it by seeing the non-resistance in the object of uh, in the meaning of the meaning apprehended. So other way of saying this is the apprehended object, the non-existence of the apprehended object, for instance, of a self. So, uh, yeah. So what it says here is one needs to understand the non-existence of those determining object branded by self-grasping. So otherwise, one cannot abandon self-grasping. So one needs to refute or negate the determining object. So I'll say one needs to think about, contemplate, and then analyze, and come to understanding that self-grasping, the object apprehended by self-grasping, do not exist, and that self-grasping itself it's false. It is a wrong consciousness. So one needs to generate such understanding. One needs to generate such understanding. So when you understand that the object apprehended by self-grasping do not exist, and self-grasping itself is a wrong consciousness, it's false, then one come to understand the meaning of emptiness. So yeah, yeah. So when our skin is pierced by a thorn, then we can use a needle, an external method, by, for example, using a needle to remove that thorn from your skin. So, however, in order to eliminate self-grasping, one has to eliminate it mentally. So, since it is a self-grasping, one has to eliminate it mentally by contemplating and by understanding that self-grasping is false, is a wrong consciousness, object apprehended by it do not exist. So one have to come to such an understanding.
일단 간단 가서 단지지 공부라 가서 단지 중에 말이법이 중에 가서 생이 나노 중에서와 가서 공부를 제마 쓰게 돼 가서 완전 가서 그 신호라 그래서 그 신호라 그러와 신호라 그러와 아 신호를 가서 공부를 제마디 제마디 빵고라 가서 대판 가서 다 빠야 이 샤워디 제마 수업을 나수 나수기 바빵고라 제마 쓰는 나수 리그로와 거기 제마도 바뀌네 那是报对吧？我讲，那许多个关键点嘛，做后来是吧？这里关键把放土壤、变土壤也是了，那变土壤，那俺都当地的关键就的，哎，起码对嘛，那是点用，也是当地的对的啊，司法的方面也是对，是吧？所以当地的课，先把那些那个不住，别这把钱，哦，这个那长的课怎么学的噻？怎么那些门都上，呀，还要不是工的，我都当时放土壤。那是放土壤，当时这个年目真的放土壤。我在这还毛个把当地放土壤不了嘛？当地的可怎么样还毛个把放土壤不了
So, when one understands that a self-grasping is a wrong consciousness, then okay, one realizes the meaning of emptiness. So by realizing the meaning of emptiness, only then one can abandon self-grasping. So one needs to understand self-grasping is a wrong consciousness. It is false because the object apprehended by it does not exist, and etc. So one has to come to such understanding. So um, when our when our feet, for example, when our foot is pierced by a thorn, then we feel painful, right? So uh, when we remove the thorn by using needle, for example, then how say one is free from the pain. So one will no longer feel the pain when the thorn is removed. So um, external method external pain can be removed by such external method. However, since the ignorance of self-grasping is inside our mind, we cannot remove it by external method like removing a thorn with a needle. So therefore, the method to remove self-grasping is by contemplation, by way of thinking. So by thinking about self-grasping is wrong consciousness, it is a false because the object apprehended by it do not exist and etc. So by thinking about this, then you abandon the self-grasping.
我理解哇，那对我来讲，我都把你调查过，是你送不的啊，有什么通是吧？把你调查那我们这个就送不多，那就是从那个虽然等到一开始，当时没有个电脑的，人家都嘛，军人当时没有个电，人家几个刚都多，那开发的时候对嘛，都是嘛，厂商的把方便的，如果是嘛，那就是这个嘛，就是去看听话，人家的把你调查，他调查的多。你们经常嘛，你是到底到那就把当你们去说，到等到这个的话，那查出你们嘛，参谋记就得看到，就是的就多的是说到当地嘛，你把这个事，当地嘛是对，是吧？查出你们接受就看到多的你都没得事呢，那当地嘛你把这个事，那当地嘛你把这个情况在，他说你们不要当地地理中啊，他也是幸福的事。别人中效果的是，别人中的训练当地没得法的，要把它你全部就是得帮下，得把这个的是，得帮的那个的是，是吧？得帮的这个的是，得帮的内容的，可起码一个可做到吧？他可是吧？我当时看个什么东西，可起码一个做到，有兴趣做的行吧？也好过的，那你的谈的，那就把能力解决收了钱啊，电影把它我呀，电我呀。这个北京结果也是，那等我也北京基地，北京看到结果也是呢，这个新你这个拿西，天了没办法，那看的，是吧？你这个拿西天了没办法，天了没办法还过的，不能当时放都没有的，那大家过得习惯，一不这样了，我说我的问题不可能给你是吧？我的，那的当时你属于对私人的这个大的是吧？当地这个县的时候，别人就是的大，看得起县的，还是自己的关心。过了大的人就县把那些的不爱是，我这对面把它好过的，咱们就打的，应该好过，是吧？我这对，那点在地上这些。
The glorious Chandrakirti also taught that once all the afflictions such as attachments and all the faults such as birth, aging, and so forth are seen to arise from the apprehensions of the self, the desire to negate and eliminate it will arise. So all of the as it often as what we are talking about here is to identify the ignorance, the self grasping is the root of samsara, and then one needs to understand it, and then one needs to abandon it. So all these are, as a Rinpoche quoted Chantakiti, Dhammakiti, Nagarjuna, Ayadeva to support this point. So one needs to understand, one needs to know about it, and one needs to see that the object apprehended by self-grasping do not exist. So, and when you see that, and you also understand that self-grasping is a wrong consciousness, it is false, and etc., then the wish or the desire to eliminate a self-grasping will arise. So one needs to understand the non-existence of the determining object apprehended by self-grasping. So what is the determining object of the self-grasping? It is the self. And then how does it, the way of apprehending it or the way of clinging it is, cling it as established by way of its own character. So this is the determining object and how it cling or apprehend the object. So, and by understanding this, the non-existence of the determining object apprehended by self-grasping, then one will be able to abandon, only then one will be able to abandon self-grasping. So at that point, the yogi negates with reasoning the object superimposed by the apprehensions of a self, the self of a person. During the middle way by Chandrakiti clearly says, seeing with his wisdom that all faults and afflictions arise from the view of the transitory collection, a yogi knows the self to be its object and perform the negations of the self. So in fact, this is what someone who meditates on suchness must do, and it's why it says a yogi. This approach is also the excellent thought of the protector Nagarjuna. He says in 60 stanzas of reasoning, composed by Nagarjuna. So he says in this treatise, this is the cause of all the views. So this is the cause. So refers to self-grasping, ignorance, the self-grasping. So this is the cause of all the afflicted views. So without without ignorance, affliction do not arise. Therefore, if you thoroughly know this, views and afflictions are thoroughly purified. Yeah. So one needs to see the non-existence of that nature. So of that nature refers ranging me ba thong wa la sa de ti ranging na ye tang mari ba panang can you remember ranging de ro so until you see the non-existence of that nature, so the nature itself refers to the determining object apprehended by the self-grasping, the ignorance self-grasping. So until you see, one needs to see the non-existence of that determining object apprehended by self-grasping. So what it says here, the meaning of this verse is like this: one needs to see the non-existence of those of the object. Sorry, one needs to see the non-existence of the nature, and nature refers to the non-existence of the determining object apprehended by self-grasping. Jirumuchi again quoted Ayadeva, saying that a statement by Ayadeva that accords with these was already quoted above. In 400 stanzas, he also says, if selflessness is seen in objects, so selflessness of person and selflessness of phenomena, that there is no inherent existence. So if selflessness is seen in objects, the seed of existence will cease or will stop or will be eliminated. So Jiramochi quoted many scholars and many treatises in order to support the point that one needs to eliminate self-grasping, the ignorance. So the Venerable Shantideva also says in his compendium of trainings, thus the emptiness of persons is thoroughly established, and since their root has been cut, all the mental affliction will not arise at all. Rinpoche also quoted a scripture to support this point. So it is as the Tathagata's Secret Sutra says, Shantimati is like this. When a tree is cut at the root, all the branches, leaves, and twigs dry up. Likewise, Shantimati, when you fully pacify the view of the transitory collection by applying antidote to it, you also fully pacified all the mental afflictions and secondary mental afflictions. The secondary mental afflictions we have discussed in the mind and mental factors module.
公的东巴，你的东巴公的更在多，看在哪里这个东巴的都更其他多的，看在哪里这个东巴都公的，对吧？看在哪里这个东巴的，看在哪里这个东巴的话，我第一公的多些，更其他的多的，你干嘛你把这多的，更其他的老板一那时候，也老那时候对吧？也老那你们先看些多吧，你们先很多的。看这个当地人心目中当面多么喜欢，我得看这个当地人心里的心目中当面多少，他等到的几百了那个，等到的话，他等到写几百的，我在刚才你在你们给找啊，也可以找嘛，对吧？那这我给他个话想法，咱们得是吧？嗯，
So this means that the view of the transitory collection is reversed through cultivating the realizations of emptiness that sees the person as empty of inherent establishment. So empty of inherent establishment or empty of inherent existence. So once it is reversed, all other mental afflictions are also reversed. So the meaning is, as the explanations here explains that view of the transitory collections is reversed through cultivating the realizations of emptiness.
他对我嘛，搞的搞不到这个，对不对？有点呢，在你们先看见的早点的，这马过来等闲呢，可以早了嘛，就嘛你要办这个过来，马里巴，马里巴，是吧？我在这时候在这到话的嘛，就，但可以早了嘛，就，可以早了马里巴，也好有时候的话，马里巴的话，马里巴，去看到当地马里巴呢，当地马里巴呢，看到马里巴上差的话，马里巴的话，那马里巴上的，你马里巴的话。ते मारी जिला ते मारी पले ते ही जी मारी ना तो कोई तो वाला मंदी मंदी ले गए बस तो आ जिला ते मारी पले ते ही सुना कोई तो वाला मंदी मंदी ले गए बस मारी पले ते ही मारी को आज पर हाँ किस का ये रेस तो मारी पले ते ही ना कोई इंसान जिला ते ना कोई तो वाला मंदी ले गए बस और कोई तो वाला नहीं हो मत से तो बात शुरू हुई तो सही बात 会做了，我你要买的是，知道没地方，那么你要买的是我在讲的这个。
If someone were to ask, so the sutra passage points out that the view of the transitory collection is the root of all other mental afflictions. If it were different in meaning from ignorance, or other way of saying this is if it were factually different from ignorance, or if it were something other than ignorance, there would be two different roots of cycle existence. So because we have identified that the root of cycle existence as ignorance, right? So however, someone might think that the sutra passage says that the view of the transitory collection is the root of other mental afflictions. Does it mean that there are two roots of cycle existence? Then the answer is, therefore, it should also be understood as ignorance. So we have already identified ignorance as the root of cycle existence. So be it ignorance, which is a self-grasping of person, or ignorance, which is self-grasping of phenomena, they are ignorance. So, and this view of the transitory collections is not uh, actually different from ignorance. Another way of saying this is not something other than ignorance. This view of the transitory collection is ignorance itself. Is ignorance itself. Therefore, there is only one root of cycle existence. So therefore, it should also be understood as ignorance.
他就为了现在就是你说的，他当时过了，努力去结巴的给全部人对吧？是吧？当时过了，弄到这个结巴结的给全部人，也是特别说的吧？他认为他看到上面的所有的我的开头，确保盲目去说的话，把盲目去看到，也可能就看到了，对的，人民弄到一个对吧？这个结也是也把开头盲目去说，对吧？盲目去。他等你结巴进来，这信息落跟这边落，当时马里把地，所以赶紧所以这大地没吧，大地没吧，信不进，也是大地没吧，是吧？这大地没吧，大地东巴马东，等你大地信息落这个大地的这个哪些，没吧啊东巴马东巴东，马东啊，是吧？东巴马东啊，上面的多一些，那个多土嘛，也是，上面是东巴的是，也多一点嘛的，多么多是的。你来看的啊，这个呀，当然你把这个给听过的，这个也是这样的给听过的，也是我等于我说，那个结果讲起过的，我的设计学啊，我等到电脑的， 그 매번 맞이나 원부 두고다 매번 온도 거 지발에서送的话 어디에
就是古代这个是都。So here it talks about in order to abandon self-grasping, one has to analyze with numerous scriptures and reasoning. It is very important to do so. As it says here, in brief, when the many supreme scholars who commented on the meaning of the profound scriptures determine the meaning of suchness, they carry out a thorough analysis by means of numerous scriptures and reasonings. They did so having perceived that it is impossible to realize substances and emptiness without seeing that the self grasped by the erroneous apprehension does not exist, and without seeing that it is empty of that self. It is essential to gain certainty with regard to this. So those great scholars, they carry out analysis by means of numerous scriptures and reasoning. So it shows how important it is to do so, because those supreme scholars, they carried out the thorough analysis in this way. It shows how important it is for us to do so. So they did so having perceived that. So they perceive that if one do not see that the self branded by self-grasping do not exist, and do not see that it is empty of that self, if one do not see the non-existence of the self branded by self-grasping, then it is impossible for one to realize substances and emptiness. Thus, it is essential to gain certainty with regard to this. So it also shows that one has to put in effort in gaining certainty in this way. So just like the previous outline that we mentioned, one needs to put effort into generating the pure view in one's continuum. Otherwise, one is of faculty. That's all. So I will stop here. If you have any question, you can ask now.
Can I, in the class, last Saturday class, there's a definition of selflessness of phenomena, which Geshe-la gave the definition as selflessness of phenomena include person and phenomena.
You mean selflessness of phenomena or self-grasping? Yeah.
No. Selfless. Last class, if you remember, Geshe-la gave three definitions. Definition of selflessness of self-grasping of person, self-grasping of phenomena, and the view of transitory collection. They appear quite similar, but only on the object of observation. So
in self-grasping person, self-grasping of phenomena, and view of the transitory collection, right? Are you referring to these three? Oh, okay.
So in the definition on self-grasping of phenomena, Geshe-la mentioned that, I read now, self-grasping of phenomena is defined as an awareness that apprehends as established by ways of its own character upon observing the person, upon observing the phenomena, which is differentiated into phenomena and person. So the last few words, does it mean that self-grasping of phenomena also include phenomena and include person? If that is so, what is the difference between self-grasping of person when the object observation is person there?
就等於其實對嗰個嘅啱啱嘅條話哋跟住做到，你哋出檔강사藝術切嘅出啦咩嘢地方嘅生意啲噃，係做到啲咯。你哋等下出檔강사藝術切嘅出啦咩嘢成啲，讓강사啦咩嘢嗱，讓강사啦咩嘢嗱，你哋出嘅當先當강사嘅當先你哋你貼下卡嘅嗱。
去的강사你去了咩嘢是哪個地？你강사了嘛？你把它把握了些，是吧？去的강사你去了咩嘢？你把它去当地是哪个是？你강사了咩嘢？当个去主管是不강사的当下了是，你马的也是吧？不去当地的吧？去的강사你去，让我去是吧？的강사去的，不去的话，常常去的话， 그 취해. 다 디파 취의 가능성이 취해서 너무 주제에 가서를 미야다 가. 그래 가능성이 취해라 미네라고 진짜 좀 진바데 이 취지 당데 그래서 어디 그거는 미국 말이야 된다 디시. 그래 가능성이 당가지 당가라고 지. 좋아. 예. 또도 부모님도나 예. 나 또도 인다. 생각 또도 공부해다. 또도 그거 또 부모다. 또도 부모님도 와. 니도데 또도 공부. 나도 당가지는 일어나시. orange the apple ni orange apple ni na orange the goose o the orange the goose the apple ni pa ka sarwa orange the apple ni na nga orange the goose
Apple makwe da wani ka ba.
da apple we ka sarwa orange the apple ni na nga orange the goose lo sana the apple the goose ka sarwa o the na shi ke sha
Yeah. Yeah, so in general, when we talk about person is also a phenomenon. So, however, here when we talk about the definitions of self-graspings of phenomena, which is an awareness branding as established by way of its own character upon observing phenomena, which is differentiated into person and phenomena. So, upon observing phenomena, which is differentiated into phenomena and person, means that it observes phenomena, which is non-person. Because we have already talked about the self-graspings of person and self-graspings of phenomena, right? So, when it says, on observing phenomena, which is differentiated into phenomena and person, so what it means is we only observe phenomena. You only observe phenomena, which is non-person. Yeah, so we already so you only observe a phenomena which is non-person. In general, person is also phenomena, aggregate is also phenomena. However, here when it says on observing phenomena, which is differentiated into phenomena and person, what it means is only observe phenomena which is non-person. Yeah, so it's just like when it says observing phenomena, which is differentiated into phenomena and person, is like I want there is orange and apple. I want orange. So when I say I want orange, then it refutes the need. It refutes the fact that it refutes that when I say I want orange, then by saying this, then it shows that I don't want apple. There is orange and apple. When I say I want orange, then it means that I don't want apple. So when it says upon observing phenomena, which is differentiated into phenomena and person, it means that it only observes phenomena, which is non-person.
Okay, thank you.
Bella, can I ask a question?
Yeah.
I thought I heard Geshe-la say that the intellectually acquired ignorance extends to all the tenets, the views. If I heard correctly, then everything is a view. My question is, once you have a view, there is an attachment, there is a craving to achieve the view. So isn't that a further cause of samsara? Because once you have a view, you have a karma, created a karma. And if a karma, there will be rebirth, there will be samsara. So my question is that how do we exercise our understanding of holding on to a view that doesn't make it a craving? The view itself becomes a craving, that's what I'm saying. Once the view becomes a craving, then it's samsara. It is karma, therefore it is samsara. That's my question, how to avoid that. And whether I heard correctly or not, that all the tenets are actually a view. Even prasangika, therefore, is a view. Therefore, if you hold a view, you have an attachment, you have a craving, and therefore you have samsara. You have karma, you have samsara. So how do you cut that links?
Ini di tanah di tu sama wa, di su di so di sama tahu wa roi wa. 对他嘛我对这点说的这么大啊的，你的大啊呢，大啊的原呢，你讲说的大啊的真的咯，大啊的松的嘞，大啊的松啊呢，你的对恰当西巴的那个嘞，但是呢讲说的大啊的真的咯，真巴当松巴当空气上水呢，真巴当松巴当西巴当大巴当，你的那个嘞，大啊的有吧姐，大啊的原呢，你讲说真的嘞。terutama itu cuti kami dah euro. Ini terutama itu cuti sama di tawaris. Ini di tawa di yuna, tawa di ngang cuti tawa di jang ni ngang cuti tawa di sungi lo, tinggiris. Tawa di tinggi yuna, ini di tujuh dan siapa yang lagi resa. Ini dia tujuh dan siapa di lewat ina, ini dia resa dan kuat di kugi res. 其实你讲做，可能大话简单的看得进，你这样大话简单的对恰是方面发展。
有可能是那样做，就他说的被听了就话，他听了的那样做，就他我那都得把可能听了就话，然后被我听了的那个就他了我话，都得把背下来那样做，都得把个正确的，听了的那些的，那做刚上的我去听了那些怎么呢？已经把那刚才的已经把那刚才的听了我，都得不知道。都这个主要的刚才这个这个呢，刚才的看了个，在看了呢，像老板那些看了我那些不让，看了这单对吧，强调机会吧，看了单对，看了这单对是不是？对我感觉强调机会吧。
西巴当对恰的话太累哦。
那可能到的对的，看了我对了，那个机会吧。
当别位对恰当西巴
这
做。
或者看了这有的吧，对吧？我这里有的。然后我这你这说的，我这先不能知道的，你看看的是，我说你都得把个，对，你的理解，我把点把这个天天把的天把，我点把这个的也上，你说的，他回来就说，我点把你得把的，我点把这个你有的些，我点把这个天天的，点把这个这个是，我点把这个这个的，点把这个天天的，那几把的，你都得把知道，我在我讲是吧？我当我这个可能天天看的那个，人家的这个也是，我做过来这个嘛的，我那就的比看的比较嘛，我那的看的吧，都对吧？我把对吧？那对吧？看的吧，就看的那些，我那就把对吧？那这个嘛，这个有看的吧呢，那个对吧？这吧，给他那个设把那个嘛，你设把旧嘛，设把旧。do deba这个天灵把那些马上把这个这个是真正的是，真正的是吧？那他这个没了，开始是那个天灵的，那个天灵的，然后把这个这个这个那做起来，先把有的是有的是，自己先把有的是啊，我说俺这为了他这个电子放了嘛，是吧？电子嘛放是的，我把这个电子成绩有的是，你不把这个天灵的是哪里天灵嘛？还是那个你这个是这个嘛的是哪里不的？刚才这个人说的，他就看那个好，是吧？刚才对了，也不这公把这个这个先把药是怎么药是的啊
ini di tawa yuna ni di对恰当西巴的有吧的。
当时呢，或者是说你这张给你到去了吧？那个对，到你这张去了吧？到是吧？你是家伙的嘛的，我说那就等着到咱们都给到这的，你当他是你给讲信了嘛是吧？所以说主要的天里的人给到是我是吧？
其实你的tawa有话那样西巴的样
也不会啊嘛，
你话有嘛咯？其實啲男性去領域那都對吧？男性，你啲其實啲半巴點巴做話嘅，啲對吧？男性去領域那，你啲當主位對在當時話啲領域嘛都，先你啲領域路啦，就會那啲到對在當時話啲領域嘛，啲啲那，到話有那樣。
这个到我了解的那些的嘛，到我用给了领域有的不领给了有。了解工作帮咱就刚才的这个，到我有的我是到我底下搞的看了研究这个对我的这个的介绍关系。他就那为呢，帮咱给他就详细在捷报不吧，说的他就详细在捷报这个呢，不然我正常的有的话，可以到我的看了不吧，看了的或者是捷报的你们介绍要么吧。
公里深水你啲到話有嘅， tawa yu bi kinzin ki yu cha thang se ba de
tawa
ge de
tawa susu tunda ki pa jan shiwa tunda ki pa tawa ki pa jan na tawa de cha
yang tawa de tu cha de thang cha ne ni de ko de bi tu cha de thang cha wai na na cha cha na de mo ma tu de ma tu ba de tu yo de de nang xin ke len gi yo na ni de thang je we tu cha na se ba de su de le yo
我的
ina de nge ba yo ma no
这是毛报了，我说的那个是，
嗯
我这是我给人家写的个嘛，
可能有梦的帮了那个
我没那咋讲的，这个我没那这个啊，到我那里第些不是这个这个啊，他帮咱就是这个到我给人家说，到我给人家写个嘛，这个是我们团队这个啥结果，有这个我们团队一个啥结果，就说然后就给他到啊，他这个听我这个对写不写个嘛。
Yeah, so when person have view does not necessarily mean that there is attachment and craving. So when we say view, when we say view, it can be the view asserted by a different school of thoughts. So in other way of saying this is it is their assertions, it is their way of branches, and it is their assertions of a respective school. So for example, if a Sautantika asserts thought as inherent, as truly existent or truly established. So they assert it, they accept it, and then they hold it that way, that thought is truly established. So we learning, the Sautantika view, and if we were to assert after learning this view of Sautantika, and if we were to agree and then also assert in the same way, then there will be attachment or craving in relation to that view. So, however, it is not necessary that when you have view in general, then there will be attachment and craving. So, for example, if a person who have already achieved eight ground, who has already abandoned afflictions, and who hold the view of Prasangika, for example. So that means that person has a Prasangika view. So since he has already abandoned afflictions, therefore there is no attachment or craving in relation to that view. So, however, if one hasn't abandoned afflictions, then there it could attachment or craving in relation to that view could arise. However, it's not necessary.
Can I follow up? For ordinary people like us, when we have not achieved any grounds yet, so what happens is that the moment a thought arises, right? The moment you think, karma is created, unless you can let go of that at the point where you don't allow the thinking to crave. The moment the thinking, karma is already created. When karma is created, samsara follows. So this is, what they said, if the answer was for people of higher grounds, in the higher grounds. But how do we practice at our level? Because the moment we think, we create karma already. We create karma, our samsara follows. So, but there are methods apparently that we can do that. Like for example, Chakchen, Mahamudra, Haisuka Tantra. Other than Sutrayana, Dokpachanpo, they have methods of whereby we can arrest that moment of thought, let it go, so that no imprints are being created. So this my question is the difficulty of doing that. So Haisuka Tantra, everything by nature is emptiness. The mantra that we chant, Om Sarvavasuddha, Sarvadhamma, Sarvasuddham, by nature, everything is emptiness. So we start from there, it's easy for us. But for Sutrayana, we have to have a view. The moment we have a view, we have a thought. The moment we have a thought, we have a karma. And the moment we have a karma, our samsara follows. This is our difficulty. isn't it?
ini di pena session ang so di susu ke wa ro shi la tang ki di pe sha ba na shi ini di sa ke ba to ba da nyu mo pang ba da ini di ta wa yu ni le ini di dang ji se ba dang di du cha yo ma wa ini ang so di susu ke wa ina so di sa ji to yo ma le ini kong gi sam sui na ang so di sam lo ji tang wa ina sam lo ji tang wa ina le di che wa le le ji chi le di chi gi wa le ini di le che wa ina ini di ko di le res 공기 삼수이나 삼로지 땅 와이나 삼로지 땅 와이나 레디 치와리 레디 치와이나 가다디 코와디 양 지수 주기레스 지수 레레스 ini kita ngansu tanda ini kapila ngansu tanda ini di susu kiwa imbe ini di tawa denso ini di nyamling chedan kandi ji na mas ini pena cha chana di nga gi chani shi wa ina cha chen da nga la me denso di lula yang kasa samlo chile wa ina ini di simya da wo simdang simbe tap da wo ini di tingi wa resa ini yang di diang kata diang ini samlo ini tujuh ini pacar di ji xia yu maris ini tinggal ngai chani di shi yu maris ini tanda ngai tanda doi chani shi yu ro kita ni di doi chani shi wa ina so gini kap de la di tawa di nyam di china kan di mas
我这生活就放在新鲜了，并花了这个你把底下把的，
le di shi yu re
花了这个了解上的你把用，
samlo tang wa ina yang
生活当然，我就生活当然强度写过了，生活当然的，我把你得到了生活当然的，理解到了生活当然的吧，这生活当然的我就花了这个生活那个生活的吧，我就被花了这生，我把你填了生活当，我把你填了生活当的，花了主要的来上的吧。 我来主要的来啥？是上了当这个我的我都来啥？你或者那个啥么的？当然说呗，两个几个月看的，去的看的，但是把人这一头的，你什么放掉看的，是吧？在这人就在工作的我这边的，里边，什么一些嘛看的，业务学的呗，那个你什么当的，那当然我这个来啥是吧？那你买一把我就上了当这个我都没有。 Yes. Was darum ko pomban shena samo ya ko tamai le side ko le to le sam.
So even though you say that when we think, then a karma is created and samsara follows, right? So whatever thought arises or whenever we think, then karma is created and samsara follows. However, that is not necessary that way. So when we think, then it doesn't mean that one will create a karma that will bring forth a samsaric existence or samsaric rebirth. For example, when we think about compassions, when we think about bodhicitta, we accumulate karma. We create and we accumulate karma. Similarly, when we meditate on emptiness itself, we create a karma as well, but it doesn't mean that it will bring forth a samsaric existence or samsaric rebirth, because those are the methods to free one from samsara. So when we think, it doesn't mean that, or it's not necessary mean that karma is created and samsara follows. So only when we think about something related to afflictions, or when we have afflicted thoughts, then only then we create karma that bring forth samsaric rebirth. Or create
my question will be that from what I understand is that Sutayana alone is not sufficient to attain enlightenment. Am I right? Sutayana alone is insufficient to attain enlightenment.
Di sangi tu maris, nangi ko atin tidi tana inas. Yeah, so whatever you say is true, that some sutrayana alone is not sufficient to attain enlightenment.
Thank you, Geshe-la.
Thank you.
Thank you. Let's stop here. That is shot. So, I was a piece of the chicken budget of the audio. The challenge of the two of the subject of the the Pero Antona Corilla, we have a tutorial this over in the two. But the weekly on 6 days, but then as imagine just on sharing. That and the Dali you took a mount to plus so mount to the answer for you to go out of Pandali, you took it at the and you want she never lost the money. Then you went out of the Kandaro, you remember that make sure that you do the budget card, sitting in the piece of the that is what is in one cheese.
We conclude with dedication. We dedicate the roots of virtue accumulated, especially accumulated since speaking last time. Sorry. We conclude with dedication. We dedicate the roots of virtue accumulated, especially through this Dharma lesson. May it be the complete cause for Buddha Dharma to flourish in 10 directions and for all sentient beings to experience excellent happiness. We also dedicate these roots of virtue to all upholders of Buddha's teaching, mainly His Holiness the Dalai Lama. May they live eons long with excellent health, and may all their holy wishes and enlightened activities be accomplished instantaneously and be spread in all 10 directions. In particular, we dedicate these roots of virtue to our beloved teacher, Geshe Lama Zopa Rinpoche, endowed with great kindness. May Rinpoche's holy wishes be accomplished instantaneously, and may the unmistaken reincarnations of Rinpoche be swiftly returned and continue to turn the wheel of Dharma for the sake of the peace and sentient beings, so that we will have the opportunity to receive the precious teaching from you again, Rinpoche. We also dedicate these roots of virtue to world peace. May excellent happiness prevail in the world. May wars that happens between countries, may conflicts that happens between countries be pacified immediately. May natural disaster that caused by 4 elements and pandemic and transmitting diseases and etc. be pacified immediately. We also dedicate these roots of virtue to all sentient beings, especially those sentient beings who are tortured by sicknesses, who pass away. And also we dedicate these roots of virtue to those who help others, such as doctors, nurses, and those who help others financially. May all their negativities and obscurations be pacified immediately and quickly achieve the state of enlightenment. And may those helpful living beings live eons long and with good health, and may all their good wishes be fulfilled. Sabi kewa de tendang ruwa kun la kan ben dang keba jisun lo san traba yi tenbe nyembo rindu se je shu se cho rinpo je ma keba na ki gyu je cheba nyama me ba yang kone kondo me wa shu keba ya chida keba rang kundo sambo te a de shin de da lo je kewa da tang je ra Dawa rinpo je ma keba na ki gyu je keba nyama me ba yang kone kondo me wa shu dawa rinpo je ma keba na ki gyu je keba nyama me ba yang kone kondo me wa shu Jesu donju la chiche sa se kanche te de chana pe mo te se ga zo la so de so chin de de do jo te ko de be te ko de ma ha le chue sam be yin shin no ka de su me te se ga zo la so de so tu je le do jo da me te ka ta spi de ran zo lo sa ga wa yan si chi wa je ran ja ji ge kyan yo ma de be te te pa tu be ke le jo yo so zo be tu de re bo che che da tu be si se be wa la ha ya mu shu su be ko ja je tu me che che la ma so wa de pe de ma le jo ye ko che bo che me de da ma che jo wa yi de la chi tu chen ba zi le no to bo shi wa shi de yi de ba wen da che so ge zo chi la da ga se na je ke la bo je lu me de pe ya lu sa be jun ke sa de je pe de no che sho ko ni la we ko we shin ga de pen da de wa mu ju we ni che re so wa tin de ya do ye cha si de ba do de yu che